House Republicans calling the State Department's Benghazi probe an inside job. During today's heated hearing, the Oversight Committee grilling the leaders of the Internal Review Board.
Responsibility for the loss of life and other damage rests completely with the terrorists who carried out the attacks.
Wouldn't you agree there was no accountability?
No, there was accountability.
On a point of order? It looks like sort of an inside job of investigation. The Department of State looking at the Department of State.
You never interviewed the Secretary of State about whether she accepted and performed a responsibility given to her by a previous Accountability Review Board.
I am in the process of issuing subpoenas because the State Department has not made those people available, has played hide-and-go-seek, and is now hiding behind a thinly veiled statement that there's a criminal investigation.
If the president's child were in Benghazi, would the rescue attempt have been more aggressive?
I see these bloody fingerprints crawling down the wall of that Benghazi place, and I keep asking everybody, do those belong to my son?
Congressman Jason Chaffetz is on the House Oversight Committee. He joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, Greta. Good to be here.
So there's a Republican report last week. It was very clear that the Republicans on the committee were dissatisfied with the ARB, the Accountability Review Board study. So I'm curious why you even had a hearing today. Why not just sort of jump right out and subpoena the people you really want to talk to instead of the board?
Well, the Democrats have long held that this Accountability Review Board was exhaustive. It's, really should be the finish line. It feels to us like we're maybe just coming up on halftime, that really we have so much more ground to cover. But I think this is a legitimate way to have this discussion. But as my colleague Trey Gowdy said, there was no accountability in this report, nor was there the responsibility laid out there. The accountability in the review board, the review was just not complete.
All right, who has been subpoenaed? Chairman Isis announced tonight they've subpoenaed 2 people, and I like subpoenas. Maybe it's my old occupation as a lawyer, but it gets people to the spot, and you can ask them questions.
These are regional security officers that were there in Libya. One that was more directly associated with Benghazi, and then Tripoli, but certainly Libya as a whole. They've now been subpoenaed, and we want to get them before the committee.
What do you want from them? The communications that night? Is that what you want?
We want the truth. There were more than 30 people on the ground in Benghazi during the attack, and we have never chatted with one. And we need open hearings where the public can hear and see these people. But these regional security officers, again, I think can lay the foundation. It's very methodical. I recognize that it's slow. The administration is making it slow, not us. But we're going to continue to plow forward. And I think the public has to hear, and certainly those families have to hear from the people that were on the ground that night.
What was the explanation? Because apparently before the ARB came out with their report, they met with Cheryl Mills, who was the chief of staff to then Secretary Clinton. I think they let us see a draft report, and then there was a briefing with the State Department. Now, were they hired or, so to speak, by the State Department, so it's legitimate, or is this tipping off the State Department? Which is it, and how do you know?
Well, the statute says that the Secretary of State shall appoint this, and so the appointment's one thing, but they made such great strides, such great lengths to say that this was independent. Then why are you calling and informing Secretary Clinton's chief of staff?
What is their explanation for that?
There was no explanation. I think Jim Jordan did a great job of grilling Admiral Mullen, saying, why did you call? At one point,
and he said, but what, though?
Well, at one point, Admiral Mullen sits on an interview where Charlene Lamb maybe didn't do so well in talking to the Accountability Review Board. He picks up the phone and says Cheryl Mills is tells Cheryl Mills, Clinton's chief of staff, hey, Charlene Lamb, who's going to go testify before Congress. That might be a problem for you.
For the life of me, I think if everyone came back and maybe under subpoena and answered the questions that this would end. It's the fact that this information is not coming forward. It's like pulling teeth is what gives this one legs. But anyway. Congressman, always nice to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.